What's up, roadies? My name is Larry Milburn, and this is Roadie Free Radio, your VIP pass to meet and greet the stars behind the scenes of the music and film business. What is happening, roadies? Welcome to episode 85. This is so not a cold barn in Northwest Connecticut. This is Los Angeles, and we are at the home of Lucie Barinkova on a rare break from the road to welcome her as our guest on the show, and and do it in a pretty cool spot. So real quick, I got to thank our friends who help us out, our sponsors. We got Telefunken Microphones, airturn.com helping us use the Go Stand, and of course Gig Gear LLC. If you want to use your code ROADIE when you check out to get 15% off, if you go to gig/gear.com, they got a lot of cool products for the touring professional. Go check it out. And our good friends over at soundgirls.org for educating and empowering young women in the field of live audio production, of which you are a member. What's going on?
Not much, on a break at the moment.
You're on a rare break, I guess. Your resume is pretty extraordinary in that it's not only a phenomenal run of bands, but the amount of education and knowledge on here. First of all, it's 3 pages, and the first page is just incredibly dense with education and knowledge. You've been doing this a while, but not that long.
No, not that long.
Not that long.
Compared to a lot of others, not that long, yes.
Yeah, but you've packed a lot in.
17 was my first go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So, all right, so we first met at the NAMM show.
Mm-hmm.
You sat on the panel I did on concert safety, and it was something that you were definitely keyed into. Safety, touring safety, and whatnot. Where did some of that experience come from for you?
As a production manager and a tour manager.
Yeah.
I started touring as an audio engineer, but then got also interested in production, logistics, safety, and in general organization of the show, the tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we barely scratched the surface in the panel of what we were talking about, but tell me a little bit about some of the experiences you've had real quick. And I know we're jumping in real heavy right now to talking about concert safety, but that was our starting point. So I want to give you a chance to chat a little bit about it one-on-one.
I would say my first actual experience with safety was, I would say, in New York, touring with hardcore bands. Yeah. Doing sound for hardcore and punk bands at CBGB's and Continental, Asbury Park. There was it was rowdy.
Yeah, the Stone Pony is on your list, right?
At the Stone Pony as well. Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of rowdy stuff going on back then. Yeah. So it was the first time I started keeping an eye for myself, most likely at the beginning, and then, of course, for my band. It was always talked about before the show, what's going to happen, a little bit of a rundown, right, to make sure we know what we're doing in case things go a little bit out of hand. Sure. Yeah, and then over time, as a tour manager, production manager, touring worldwide, with different ethnic groups, you always have the cultural difference. People have political interests, and just in general, coming with a band to a country where you might not be as liked sometimes, it's very important. Yeah. But you had some very definite sort of views and procedures that it sounded like you put in place when you go out on the road for your artists and your crew. Can you tell me a little bit about that stuff? And also, your approach at each venue. You told me you have a meeting every day. It might not be the most popular thing to do, but you make sure it happens and you won't let anybody out on stage if there are any issues. So tell me a little bit about that, because I'm sure you're not so popular with that part. I'm sure you're very popular, but I'm sure not very popular in terms of, holding things up and making sure that guidelines are followed. It starts at the beginning with the technical security. Mm-hmm. You come to Vietnam, you go to Thailand, you go to countries where Russia or not saying underdeveloped countries, but countries that don't have that much money to really provide good security and the technical backup. They don't have the specific gear, so you find very you find yourself in extreme situations sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's basically my first to go thing, to kind of look through the entire area, walk the area, look at the stage, make sure we don't have any power issues. There's no issues with the structure in itself, with the construction. We have barriers everywhere. I mean, it happened even to myself that I fell down during a changeover at some point because there was actually no barrier in the back. Fell into the black hole backstage, and show was over for me before it even started.
Wow.
So yeah, just things like that. And then in Europe we also have stricter security measurements with wearing hard hats on bigger stages, and so it's been looked at very differently.
Tell me some of the cultural differences when you first came over in terms of doing sound and being a crew member and whatnot. Some things you experienced coming from Europe to here. Were there a lot of differences? Because you kind of cut your teeth over there, yeah?
Yes. I mean, I don't know if it was... Yes, there was, of course, the cultural difference, but it was also some of the funny stories or experiences that I had was based on maybe being a woman. People kind of looking at me like I'm a parrot in a cage. Yeah. Like a guinea pig. And then, of course, the cultural difference. I spoke barely English. I think I had, on my first ever tour, I could say 2 or 3 sentences, and it was like, sound good. And they would just make jokes during sound checks, like, check, you check over there. Are you, just the typical thing. And so what would be a difference? What I really liked, and the reason I actually stayed, because I never planned really to move to America, was the fact that people approached me, being a woman, more with on a positive side. They were excited. They saw it was something different. I mean, it still wasn't the right reason to hire me. They just some people kind of liked the fact that suddenly they had a woman at front of house, and it was something out of the ordinary. Yeah, didn't make me feel any better as an audio engineer being hired. I mean, I proved my work, but people were different in Europe. Starting in the 90s, there was no woman. I thought there was something severely wrong with me, that I wanted to do that. I couldn't really understand where that came from. My family there, none of them are musicians. They're all artists, painters, architects.
Big family?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very big family, but nobody really in the music industry. I studied art and architecture, and I just had a bunch of friends that were in bands, and we did art together. We were all creative when we were teenagers, and I was painting a painting, and they were writing music, and I just had snobby art people stand in front of my painting and judging it. And I just didn't like the reaction. And my friends, they had 200-300 people going crazy. I'm like,
what's wrong
this
with
is unfair.
Yeah, right.
I want to be doing that kind of art. So,
but why didn't you gravitate toward music to do that part? If you saw them getting this attention as musicians, are you not musical in that way?
I tried a bunch of instruments, but it never really resonated with me on a personal level. A guitar, kind of, just the movement didn't feel right. Stage fright, which I have till this day. Yeah. Doing monitors is still always a funny push.
Versus front of house?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there has been some learning curves and really funny tours.
Is it because you're on stage and you're visible from the audience, or you're on stage and it's that much more pressure because the band is right there?
No, it was more the audience. Just people looking. I mean, nowadays I got over it, but at the beginning it was hard for me. I tried to play trumpet. I froze. I think I got 2 tones out of that thing. Yeah. My throat was just clogged up, and I'm like, okay, no. Yeah. And I did art installations with audio, messed with it a little bit. So my first boyfriend was an audio engineer, had a studio, and I had little fingers, so I could actually solder and help him fix the gear. So yeah, I was put onto the workstation, mic station, and that's how it started. But the art in itself of mixing, because I never learned it at school, and it was not the technical background that I was interested in, but more the mixing, and I mixed very visually coming from the art school with a little bit of I have a snitch of a color synthesis, synesthesia. So it was interesting. I was more interested in the acoustics of the room and how to move frequencies and the energy in a room, and it sounds very out there, but that was my approach to mixing.
Yeah. And you were just figuring it out?
Figuring it out by my boyfriend put me in front of a mix board one day because he double booked himself at a gig. He was a front of house engineer, and he's like, "Do you fix this board? You know how it works. Just do." And I mean, there was like a 3-hour feedback going on. So it didn't really happen too much. Luckily, it was Hoi Polloi, an old punk band from the UK. So they yelled at everyone. Everyone yelled at each other, and it turned out I survived.
Yeah.
Let's say that. Then I was like, okay, now I have to learn it, because if he's gonna do that again to me, which he will, I have to at least know what I'm doing. Otherwise, I can't be seen in the city anymore.
Right. And good for him for throwing you into the fire and giving you the confidence to try it, right?
Yeah, he did. And people kind of didn't take it serious. They were like, "Oh, she's just doing it because she wants to impress her boyfriend." And that's how it kind of started. And
where was this?
Austria.
This was in Austria.
Yeah, it was at a youth center in Austria, in Graz. And I then also started doing sound at a squad called The Arena, which then also became a big venue until this day. Is one of the greatest venues, I think, in Vienna.
Yeah. But you grew up with your family in Czechoslovakia, yeah?
Yes, I was born in Czechoslovakia.
And how old were you when you left?
It was 89. I was 8 years old.
Wow.
8.5, 9 years old.
Yeah.
And we walked. We did the Syrian walk.
From Czechoslovakia?
Czechoslovakia to Austria, like everybody does, through Hungary.
Sure.
You come up, and then Austria.
What was that like? Do you remember? Do you have memories of Czechoslovakia at that time?
Yes, I remember Czechoslovakia very vividly. I mean, I just specifically the whole political situation. As a child, you're at school. You go through the drills. What would you call it? The atom bomb drills that you do every Monday. It's the bunker drill, and we were just waiting for the big eagle to drop.
Right.
That was what we were told back then. We spoke Russian at school and Czech, and it was the 1st May, and there was a lot of what do you call them? Now I don't get the word. I switched into Czech. City prides.
Okay, like parades.
Parades.
Yeah.
Right. The parades.
Yeah.
Prides. And it was all about the communism. It was all about, there was no color, everything was gray, except the only thing I remember being color was, the red flags, was the propaganda that was happening.
Sure.
And then we walked, and there was always stories about the West and what's behind the wall, and we as kids always had our own stories with, chocolate being everywhere and kids having all these colorful things, and we talked about colors like pink and purple. And I remember a friend of mine, her father brought a little pony back home, and we played with it, and I took it in my hand, and I never felt that pink plastic, and it was glitter, and it was just different.
Wow.
Than what we had.
Sure. What did your parents do?
My mother was kindergarten. She was kindergarten teacher, and she was doing research on children's behaviors and studying architecture and art history. And my dad was an engineer.
Wow. And how many brothers and sisters?
Little brother.
Just a little brother. So just you 4.
5 years younger. Yeah, he was 3.5, 4 years old back then. Yeah.
And you walked.
Yes.
Did you have a place to go to, or was it just we need to leave?
We need to leave. My dad, of course, had a couple of contacts.
Mm-hmm.
And he said we need to leave. We couldn't really tell anyone in the family, of course, because that would have been a threat for them.
Sure. And was it just literally one of those middle of the night, we're out of here?
I remember a couple days, or I don't really know how long we were. It's still a subject with my parents that I can't really openly talk about without emotions coming out. And we talk about it sometimes, especially since I'm now engaged into refugee work a lot, and I'm very interested in it. I kind of want to work in that as well at some point. But the West, waking up in the West, I knew it. The day I woke up, I saw a public swimming pool with a bunch of slides that were all different colors. I remember seeing the first McDonald's, completely blown away by that. And and then life took a complete different course. We were in a refugee camp for a while.
What was that like? And that was in Austria?
I was in Austria.
Yeah.
Austria back then.
How big was it?
It's not big. Well, it's kind of used to be, way back in the days, it used to be a prison, then it was a hospital. It's been a refugee camp for many years, and they were basically, it was behind closed doors, giving people political asylum, refuge, and you were then able to apply for American or Canadian or Australian citizenship, and you would put on a plane and taken to a different continent. And that's what my parents were planning. But then they opened the Berlin Wall and just chaos happened, and it got overrun with a lot of refugees, and nobody knew what's going to happen. Suddenly all the laws diffused, and they were like, okay, now you can go back home. We of course couldn't.
Sure.
My parents stayed in Austria. They live in Austria till this day.
Wow.
I learned German. I went to school, art school, and then got into music. Got into music more than anything, specifically because as a refugee, not speaking very well German, not being accepted that well, because back then the country was also very frightened by the overload, which we have now the same situation. They were not so welcomed.
Sure.
So you kind of go through that bullying and
so you faced a lot of that.
Yes, as a teenager, very much. And I started going to shows because I could kind of talk to people about music, and have an interaction, go to shows and have fun without feeling kind of the pressure of speaking the same language and being able to articulate myself, which kind of has been, in a way, complex throughout my life,
of course.
I would say.
But also going to shows or picking a style of music or some bands gives you an identity.
Yes.
And then you kind of have a group, right? You kind of have your friends, and it's us against them and whatever. Yeah, so that's got to be a big help.
I was part of a family suddenly. I was before the internet. We were all just exchanging scenes and talking about music. It was very social, and I found my group.
Yeah.
And
do you have fond memories of growing up in Austria?
Yes. Yes and no.
Yeah.
Because of the whole refugee situation, there was very rough moments. I had to prove myself in front of people that were kind of teachers that were supposed to be supportive. But in general, I mean, growing up in Europe is fantastic. You have a very awesome education, especially coming from Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
That was one thing I have to say. The East Bloc, they were very adamant about good education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did your family live in the refugee camp before you were able to get out and sort of find your own
overall
place?
Till we actually had our own place was almost a year and a half, 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were kind of pushed from different rooms, then different complexes, different cities.
Yeah. It must be interesting to have all those other kids, children, adolescents around you that whole time too, because everybody's displaced. You're all trying to work it out. You're all vying for something to hold on to, I'm sure. Did you make some lifelong friends there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And more actually later on, when I was living in America already, suddenly this Facebook group contacted me, and we reconnected with a lot of people. And that was really interesting. And a lot of the people are in America now.
Wow.
And yeah, we've become really good friends.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
And Austria is, to me, I consider this home now.
Yeah.
As much as I do consider Czech Republic my home. My parents are very happy there.
Yeah.
My brother is a blood-hearted Austrian in the Alps.
Is he?
Yes.
Yeah.
I barely understand his accent.
Wow.
He doesn't remember very much.
Yeah.
And I think he doesn't remember anything from that time, to be honest.
Yeah.
So he has a different view on Austria. For me, it was more of it's kind of like a rough teenager time that I had to battle through.
Sure.
And I then, when I finished school, first thing I wanted to do was travel and experience more. It fueled my hunger for more, because I started seeing this new different world that was behind the wall, behind the Iron Curtain. And I knew there's way more than that. And I kind of wanted to finish out the journey for my parents and come to America as well.
Was America for you the end game?
No.
Which was the end game?
I don't know what the end game is. I kind of had the goal to travel and find a place that's going to be my home.
Yeah.
But
So even now, America's kind of you don't know.
No, every country has its good things and its bad things and its interesting things. And to me, culture differences is a game more than anything. I mean, it makes me, like things like racism make me extremely angry.
Sure.
But in general, I embrace it more than anything. I'm interested about people growing up differently. I'm not scared of it.
Right.
I think racism comes from fear. I experience it now, especially coming back to Austria with the Syrian situation, how much it affected even my parents now.
Of course.
How my parents are now on the other side of the game.
Yeah.
How they talk about it. It's a very different game.
Yeah, it must put you in particular in a very interesting spot, because you can identify, and then but you've got your parents who are on this other side of it. I mean, it's fascinating. Wow. And you must look around, and I'm sure you've been in situations on the road where you see excess and whatnot, and you see how some things are done here in this country, and like you got it pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? Don't complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. All right. So your boyfriend, you're in architecture school. You want to be an architect? Are you into design?
I wanted to be interior design and stage design. Stage design was my main interest.
All right. So there was a little bit of inklings of
Yes.
of this stuff.
Yes.
And then you spend 3 hours providing feedback for Hoi Polloi, which they loved. And then it was a feeling of like, I've got to solve this issue. And so you did, it sounds like. And that's where it all started.
Yes. Home gigs.
Home gigs
was, that was the thing.
Yeah. In a bunch of different clubs there in Austria. And what was sort of the break that got you out on the road initially? And who did you start learning from? Now you're popping into different clubs. You're doing sound. Was there anybody beside your boyfriend, of course, to say, hey, what the hell am I doing? And there's no internet.
Yeah, not really. My boyfriend, yes, he was willing, but I was too embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because I still wanted to be the cool girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna figure this out by myself. So I just learned by doing, by messing up a lot of shows.
Which shall remain nameless. Right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I started with cable wrapping, with miking, and watching shows, listening to shows, going to shows, and just standing in a back, sneaking up and looking what they're doing. Yeah. And he was great. He was very patient with me and helped me, of course. But my actual learning, came by touring. So I think that the simple setup you learn very quickly. It's just a matter of having an ear.
Yep.
And I also back then, the clubs that I worked at didn't had very much outboard gear. So it was literally just learning with the knobs. There was no distraction of using gates, using compressors. It didn't get too complicated. I had 2 verbs. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, the main focus was really just at the gain structure.
Yep.
And so over time, I got that pretty down.
Right. And whatever EQ you might have.
Yeah.
At the top of the board.
Yeah, and especially working without gates and without compressors, you start to really tweak on the frequencies. You have to learn your frequencies.
Yeah.
And do that homework.
Sound companies over there? Were there sound companies that would rent out gear that you could go work, or one could go work for, like there are here?
My ex said, yeah.
He had a sound company. Okay, so it wasn't like he was just a working audio guy with his own gear. He worked at a sound company. So that's where you sort of figured it out. Okay.
Yeah. We bought more and more gear, started topping up and doing bigger and bigger shows. It was very much, Austria was very much DIY. There was not many people coming through.
Yeah.
And the people that were coming through were, punk and hardcore, and rockabilly, jazz fusion, like the small niched kind of scenes that would connect with each other before internet was it wasn't about big shows. I wasn't doing any major shows back then.
Right.
So it was all learning by doing, and people would sleep at our house, at the studio. Bands would come through. I would cook, and it was awesome.
Did you also have an ear or a desire to get into more studio work, or was it always about the live thing? And if it was always about the live thing, what was it about that environment?
I was more at the beginning. I really wanted a studio, wanted a house, a studio, being able to house bands and kind of, and have them over for months and months on end and actually create music.
Yeah.
That was kind of at the beginning my goal. And I built through the architecture school. We did a bunch of projects, and I built with my boyfriend a couple studios and messed with that, but lost the interest the second I got into live shows and saw how crazy and awesome it was. And
What's your favorite part of a live show? From the morning to the end of the show, what in there is your favorite? And maybe it's the end of the show.
There's a bunch of different favorites. My personal favorite is probably the first 3 songs. The first 5 minutes before the show goes on.
Yeah.
Watching the crowd.
Yeah.
That electric moment.
Yeah. Do you get butterflies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Stints every day, always.
Yeah.
And then
any pre-show rituals?
I take off my shoes.
You mix barefoot?
Yes.
That's awesome.
I have a carpet.
You have this special carpet.
Yes. I just bare feet, because I just climb up on my chair if I don't see sometimes, and I don't know, just kind of a ninja sometimes. Yeah, it just makes me feel home.
Right.
There's not a ritual. I try not to drink before the show.
Yep.
I also don't smoke weed before the show.
Yep.
I don't have good experiences mixing on weed. I get too creative.
Yep. What does this one do?
But dinner before doors open is kind of my overall favorite of the day with everyone.
Yeah.
When everything is set in place, people kind of calm down, and then you just mentally start, everybody's starting to prepare for the show for themselves. They're kind of in their own.
I was gonna say, do you try to take time for yourself once loading's done and sound check? Is there a 20-minute or 10-minute period? Are you a meditator?
If I'm a front of house engineer only, yes, I meditate. I go for a run.
Mm-hmm.
I read or listen to podcasts.
Yeah. This podcast.
Yes, of course. If I tour manage, no.
Yeah.
I have a moment when the tour is done.
Right. Right. 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a tour manager, not really.
Yeah.
I get up early in the morning as if I tour manage or do production. 6 a.m. and then have my coffee and trying to have my own moment when everybody's still asleep.
Yep.
Before the day starts going.
So many people obviously juggle a lot of different roles: tour manager, production manager, front of house, monitor, production manager, all that kind of stuff. How do you personally juggle all those things? Or are you trying to just do one thing at a time now? Or no? And I don't even think you can, right? I mean,
it depends on the bands. There's been bands where I like doing front of house only and love to stay away from the TM side. There is other projects that I've been on where I really love doing the production because it was very creative.
Yeah.
Front of house is always going to be my big thing, but because I'm touring so much, I also like taking care of people.
Yeah.
Being the mom, that kind of gave me also outside of the engineering world a little bit of an ease being on tour as a woman. You don't get that first interaction kind of, oh, wow, surprise. When I come in as a tour manager, it's like, oh, okay, nice to meet you, because people are more used to having tour managers around. So I don't deal with that too much. And that's kind of that's a good ease sometimes.
Do you remember when you first saw another woman doing what you do? And what your reaction was?
Yes, it was actually Carrie.
Awesome.
It was Carrie. Back then in Europe, 90s, early 2000s, there was no one. My internet was so slow, I had to wait half an hour for
All
something
of our
to
internet
load.
was very slow back then.
There was MySpace that barely kind of gave me a connection internationally.
Yeah.
Somebody kept mistaking me constantly for a girl called Phoebe.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I don't think she tours anymore. She was based in San Francisco, but she was touring with a lot of Fed Record bands. And because we were both blonde, everybody came up, oh, hi, Phoebe, how are you? And just it was getting on my nerves so much.
Yeah.
I'm like, who is this Phoebe woman? Why am I supposed to be Phoebe?
Right.
But still, there was no woman. And then I saw at Grossrock, I saw Carrie with Pearl Jam, but I saw her only across the stage for a brief moment. I was on a separate stage. And that was a wow moment.
I bet.
That was a wow moment. I didn't get to meet her.
Yeah.
We were too busy. But it was great. It was the first time I was actually not feeling weird. And it was nice. And then over time, of course, coming to America, I met more women in a studio on a producer side.
Right.
With artists than actually mixing. I think in the last 6 years there has been, or 10 years has been
Big
more
growth.
and more women.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. And what a great thing to see someone like Carrie. It's a big band, Pearl Jam in Europe, so I'm sure the crowd was huge.
Yes.
And it must have just been like a little glimmer of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There's somebody doing this at this level.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Another kindred spirit out there. That's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Do you do a lot of mentoring now? You help out with Sound Girls?
I do mentoring. I personally take women out on tour, interns.
Yeah.
I also have I got my cousin from Philadelphia, grand cousin that I met. She did a Sound Girls summer camp, which is great. She's going out to shows and trying to learn more and more.
So what's the Barinkova Audio Academy? When you get one of these young interns on the bus for the first time and you're about to break down for them, here's the deal. What's the deal from you? What's your wisdom that you impart?
Just keep calm. And don't be afraid to ask a question, because that was my biggest issue at the beginning, was really being able to ask a question, and people were pushing me. I was afraid to show that I don't know what I'm doing or that I don't have enough knowledge. So I was pushed very early into bigger shows And my first big show was actually at Grossrock, one of the main stages, and suddenly it's patched in gates, then patched in compressors, and I was horrified of admitting that I don't know what it was. And so he looked at me, he's like, do you want any of it? I'm like, no. So he started ripping, he looked at me, very confused, ripped it all out, and was just waiting for me to really screw up. I didn't, because I was used to it actually mixing, and it was a good experience for him, which was nice. But asking questions, not be afraid, and just see it as a normal job. Everybody starts out everywhere as an intern.
Yeah.
There's no magic to it. It's somehow you have to learn by doing. So if I do have somebody that wants to learn, I put them right in front of a board.
Right.
And tell them,
Trial by fire.
Don't be afraid. Of course I watch over.
Right.
Make sure they don't make a mistake or damage something in a sense. But in general, learn by doing.
Yeah.
And have fun with it. It's all about having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been working these last few years really hard to kind of get to a place where you can be a little bit more choosy, I guess, for lack of a better word, on the projects you want to go do, and to have a little bit more downtime, I guess, to rest. Is that the idea now? Or are you in sort of a pivotal moment where you're trying to figure out what the next thing is, or do you know what the next thing is?
Both. I've toured in the last 10 years heavily. Heavily nonstop from one tour, from one project to the next. And now I'm getting more and more interested into abiosonics, into 3D sounds. So everything is evolving. VR is evolving. Visuals are evolving. And I would love to spend more time experimenting on the audio side with it. And maybe be able to do some fun shows in, 3D domes or abiosonic rooms.
Yep.
And see where it takes me from there, not just events, but maybe also work with children that have different disabilities, with deaf children with epilepsy, and
Is that a big piece of you from where you came from, being around displaced families and kids, to kind of give back?
Because of my upbringing, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always been that. I've always felt really attracted to at the beginning, to the DIY scene, because everything was people helping each other. The touring scene, it's a family. It's a touring family. I love that. Being able to travel the world with people you get along with, you share the passion with, and I would like to give back. For me, music was the thing that made me happy and made me belong to something, and I want to give that back to refugees, to women, to anyone, children, any disabilities, anything there is, normal children, whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself on the road for a long time?
Maybe not 12 months out of the year or 10 months out of the year. I like to keep the balance. I learned that living in Sweden for 5 years. Swedish Scandinavian bands are very great in keeping the balance between family life and touring life. Also.
How so?
I don't think they tour. They don't tour as much as we do.
Yeah.
For them, a touring cycle, there are bigger gaps to be able to take care of children. Also, the men are way more not engaged, I would say, but fathers are very important in Sweden. They play a big role in the family life. Managers go home at 4 p.m., take their kids from kindergarten and go home. It's a little bit different for them. It's as much important as the job and the creative part, and also balancing out women and men on tour, which made me move to Sweden for a couple of years.
Yeah.
That was very awesome.
Yeah. Would you go back?
For the winter, I won't.
Yeah.
that for the summer, yes.
Yeah. Do you like LA? I mean, you kind of can't be
Yes,
this right now.
I love the weather. I love that a lot of touring people that I've known for many years are around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of studios. There's a lot of creative stuff happening. The circus around it is kind of funny. I'm hiding here.
Yeah.
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 No, I
It's a
think
good spot to hide.
yes.
Yeah.
The second I have children, I'm probably gonna find something more mellower place.
So you want to have children. You would like to have a family.
If not my own, maybe adopt.
Take somebody else's.
Steal somebody else's.
Yeah.
Austrians are known for the children in a basement. Sorry.
Right.
This house has no basement, by the
Right.
way.
Yeah, no basements in LA. That was something I had to learn when I moved out from the East Coast
Yeah.
originally. It was like, where's the basement? No, we don't have them here.
I was shocked
Yeah.
coming from Austria.
Right.
It's a no-go.
Totally bizarre.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, youth center would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe if I don't put the energy into my own kids in a community.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Have maybe a small venue. Teach kids how to do audio.
Yeah. Again, the Barinkova Academy of Audio Production. So, with all the travel around the world that you've done, I imagine you've got your personal travel thing down. So, when you get the call to go, what do you bring? What are the essentials? And then let's take it to the gear. What's the gear that you're like, this is what I need to go out?
So my personals.
You got to have a few
yeah.
books or...
I pack books that I never have time to read. They're always there, just in case.
Yep.
My coffee mug. Very important.
Mm-hmm.
My little rug.
Does the rug go on the bus, or does the rug have its own case that rolls? Someone's in charge of the rug.
It's either in my production case or it's in my office.
Uh-huh.
My yoga mat, my spike mat to sleep on.
Mm-hmm.
Just things that make me homey.
Yeah.
I have.
So you're pretty active out there. I mean, you've talked about going for a run. You're doing yoga. There's a lot going on.
I plan on it.
Yeah.
I also bring those books that I never read.
Ah, right. So the yoga and the running ends up in the book pile.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on if I have the time. Yeah, I need at least an hour by myself.
Yeah.
I'm not a great morning person, but I have to.
Right.
So yeah, yoga.
Yeah. Do you like living sort of with that traveling family on a bus?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes and no. To a certain extent, I have a limit.
Mm-hmm.
I think 5 weeks, and then I do need a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like tour bus life. Juicer. No. Juicer is the first thing I pack.
What's your juicer of choice? The big old thing? No.
Yeah.
Really?
That's the thing I set up every day in a dressing room. Every band I tour with, there's always going to be a juicer and a basket of fruit and veggies.
Nice.
And yeah, that comes with my assistant's love cleaning the juicer.
That's part of the job. When you're done breaking down the board, get the carrot shit out of my juicer.
Clean the juicer, pack the veggies, and put it on a...
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the relationship, your relationship with your assistant or your systems tech. You've been a systems tech, right? Didn't it say that somewhere? Did I just make that up?
No, yes, I've been
systems technician. There it is, top line.
Yes. A long time ago I was. Didn't like it too much.
Yep.
Just because I missed the creative side of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that relationship between you and your systems tech. Is they're kind of your right hand, right? They take care of everything. What do you look for in a good systems tech? How long have you worked with your current systems tech?
I would say 3 years on and off. I have different people depending on where the band is from.
Yeah.
If we're starting out from Europe, if the production is from Europe, I like to take European people. Otherwise, Americans. If I'm in Australia, I like to take an Australian out. It's good communication and someone who can handle sometimes my freak out if I have a freak out.
What?
Not during the show, but if I get nervous, everybody gets nervous.
Yeah.
A good system tech, warm sound, and dynamics.
Interpersonal dynamics or
No,
audio dynamics?
Audio.
Yeah.
I like the PA to speak. I'm not the type of engineer that does the glossy, poppy sound. I mean, with Tom Tom Club, like coming from like the Talking Head sound, B52's of course, but it's still kind of that 80s.
Yeah.
80s sound that comes with it. Back in the day, metal bands was also. I like more of the analog, grindy sounds.
Yeah.
Toms, drums, a little bit more. It has to speak. I like open microphones. I am till this day like, yes, I use gates nowadays, but it's more of a security than anything.
Right.
I like the whole stage to be able to speak, the dynamic on the stage to be able to speak, no matter how big the stage is. Except, of course, when you're at festivals and then you have wind and all of that coming into it,
Right.
it becomes more difficult. But
Sure. What microphone's a choice?
if I can bring, I bring Neumanns.
Across the board, vocals down to drums, everything?
I experiment with different microphones on different instruments. I like Shure very much a lot on vocals. Telefunken.
Yeah.
What else we have? Sennheisers on drums.
Yeah. So you mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try different. There is not a single microphone where I say, okay, this microphone I use specifically for this. Every band is different. They have different sounds in a studio. As much as they, try things out in a studio, I try as well. And then, I mean, a simple thing with a 57 and a 58, that's the start point.
Right. You can kind of conquer the world with those.
Yeah.
Those
can do
two
anything.
and a roll of gaff tape, you pretty much can take on the world.
Yeah. And when it comes to front of house boards, because I very much like the analog sound, and even when I worked with electronic bands, I try to rip their music apart into stems and then make it a lot more analog.
Do you record everything too while you're going?
Not often.
No.
If they request it, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't. I don't want to be set on certain settings that I go through where I end up doing the same thing after 2 weeks, day by day. I kind of try to always start with a blank slate in every venue and start with the room and then work my way backwards. Yeah.
What is your favorite pre-show, like, to warm up the PA? What do you like to listen to? What do you put on? And do you try to find stuff that kind of fits the type of band you're with? So if it's,
Yes,
Tom Tom Club, something like that, maybe. Or are you listening to what the band played the night before?
Sometimes I play their own records
Yeah.
as a reference if I like if the recording kind of matches the live sound. Talking Heads has always been on my playlist.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd, of course, just to do something for 10 minutes.
Sure.
And have a good time.
Yeah.
A lot of soul R&B. And then The Knife.
Yeah.
Because I worked with them for a while.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time listening to that.
When you're not working, do you go out and see bands?
Yes.
Does it drive you crazy? Do you want to reach over and do your own tweaking of someone's desk, or no? Can you set it aside and just enjoy?
If I go to mainstream shows, no, I can. I mean, of course, you can never switch it off. Like,
Yeah.
you're always going to have an opinion.
Right.
I always play the game, How Old is the Audio Engineer? That also is a fun game to play. Or which country is the audio engineer from? You can tell very much. Yeah, I like to go more than jam bands, jazz, jam shows.
You like to go to those?
Yes.
Yeah. Why is that?
Just because a lot of chaos happens. A lot of on-the-spot creative stuff happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm not in that judgment. Oh, they did the lights this way. Oh, they set up the stage this way. Oh,
right. You never know what's going to happen.
No.
Right. It's different every night.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to go back real quick to the mixing with bands that have been around for a while, that have a history. Because I've talked to some other engineers, front of house in particular, who try in their mix, if it's an older band, let's say, maybe not to completely replicate what that band sounded like back in the day, but somehow to honor it, because those bands are playing songs that the audience know really well. You know, the audience grew up with that. Do you at all try to do that, to sort of subtly in your mix pay homage to a sound that they may have had? Or no? Is it fresh and new every night and tuned for the room, basically?
I don't think I went into it with an intention to copy something. When I, for instance, started with Tom Tom Club, to me I was super nervous because of Tina. Tina has been my biggest idol.
Yeah.
So getting that call, I dropped my whole life. I made it happen.
Yeah.
And I did not try to replicate it. I was more listening what was going on stage, how they were playing. I also feel like most of the bands that have been around for such a long time, they don't try to really replicate the song one by one. They're a little bit more loose with it. They have more fun with the song.
Yeah.
So I take that more on than really trying to replicate a record.
Yeah. We were talking just before we started rolling about some of these bands that you've been with, the B52's, Tom Tom and whatnot, and sort of their general attitude when they go out, because they've been doing it for so long. And they came up in the whole DIY world, so that's a little bit of that, fuck it.
Yes.
They don't get nervous.
Yes.
I'm sure they get a little nervous.
Oh, you just have a extra glass of wine.
Right.
And no, it's actually really fun backstage with them, because they're relaxed. They have nothing to prove. On a personal level, everybody is a little bit more relaxed. And if it is a specific show that means a lot, of course, we sit down and have a conversation and we go through details. And, you know, Tina gets a little nervous, and it's more about how's my dress and bass and this and is my drink up there. But Chris just jokes endlessly. Fred Schneider. I mean, Fred Schneider is Fred Schneider. I think he's even funnier off stage than he is on stage.
Yeah.
I think he's more, he's way funnier. Going for dinner with Fred Schneider, having a family dinner with B52's, and Frank Gallagher, which has also been their all-time front of house, and who got me into that whole family, because he has been with the Ramones and Talking Heads in the 70s and 80s. When you have those people at a table, it's awesome.
Yeah.
There's stories and stories and stories and stories. It's awesomeness.
Endless, yeah.
Awesomeness, yeah.
When you meet somebody, you tell them what you do, or someone meets you, or it's like, hey, my daughter thinks she wants to get into sound and do all this stuff. Can you talk to her? You know, a lot of people that have been in the entertainment industry, I'll open it up to music and film. If you've been in long enough, there's that sense of like, okay, you don't want to do this. Go find something else you want. You don't want to do this. Do you have that feeling? And it's not so much jaded, it's just sort of you now know too much. You know what goes on, you know? But, of course, you're not going to leave. We're not going to leave. This is what we do. You know, it's all you know how to do. So, you know, do you have that feeling or no?
Yeah, I have a love and hate relationship with the whole roadie situation.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of moments in my life where I'm like, oh, my gosh, where am I going? Where is this? Am I going to be 50, 60 with no children, no family? You know, have all these stories be unhealthy because I spend too much time. I have a lot of colleagues that had a really good time for 40 years.
Right.
And that scared me sometimes.
Sure.
That's why I'm saying I really like to keep it always very balanced.
Mm-hmm.
My goal was I've never looked up to like the roadie tough chick. Yes, I was like that for a while, trying to buckle up with the men.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I think there's so many different opportunities to travel, to be creative, to be part of really awesome historic moments. And I think as long as you're realistic about it, where you can take that. If you feel like you want to be a backline tech and keep touring till you're 50, 60, and then you're able to retire, because at some point we all physically won't be able to do this.
Sure.
And I mean, sleeping on a tour bus that's not a joke. After a month, you feel it.
Yeah.
I think you have to realistically prepare for that day to come. That's all. I don't think it's forever ongoing.
Yeah.
And I've been in the last 3-4 years kind of trying to look where I can take this elsewhere. Also because at some point you've been everywhere. You've played. At least I kind of reached my goals in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I can repeat it for a while. But I feel like now I also want to bring in or create something more, something different.
Yeah.
And then just live sound.
Been all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Few times.
Yes.
Favorite venue, big or small? When you walk in, you're like, all right, I'm home. Let's do this.
Actually, the Norba in Norfolk for some really cheesy reasons.
Okay.
3-story venue. I just have really good memories in that house.
Yeah.
They have awesome backstage. And a lot of games, basketball court, saunas.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
How do we go there?
PA was awesome. Red Rocks. Red Rocks, one of my favorites.
Red Rocks. How could it not be?
Yes.
Not an easy load in, I hear, right?
Not an easy load in. Not easy with certain types of music to mix.
Mm-hmm.
I've had really awesome shows, and I've had some shows where I was busy throughout the show.
Yeah.
And was not 100% happy. What else would I say? The Grotten in Norway, which is an island, and it's actually a
Sounds
cave.
cool. Even cooler.
So we've done.
We should do a travel show with you. Lucie's best tour spots.
It was.
We got a cave. We got Red Rocks. So you like stone. You like natural environments, it sounds like.
I think the next project is going to be underwater.
An underwater 3D show.
Yes.
In virtual reality.
In virtual reality.
Love it.
Absolutely.
All right, last question. Are you ready? I'm going to put you right on the spot here.
Mm-hmm.
You've traveled the world a few times. You work with some amazing bands. You have all this amazing experience. You figured it out on your own for the most part, along the way, a lot of it on your own. If you could go back to that 8-year-old girl walking from Czechoslovakia with her family to Austria, entering this refugee camp, what would you tell her?
Just be brave. I don't know, just be yourself, because it doesn't matter. Culture doesn't matter. Language doesn't matter. misunderstandings are always there. Yeah. Everyone in the world is, I would say, actually the same. We all fear the same things. We're all happy about the same things. It's very simple. Yeah. To me, yeah, the world was open after that.
Mm-hmm.
I think anyone can do anything. Yes and no. It's of course, not really, but I would like to say that to any refugee kid. Some make it and some don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucie, thank you very, very, very much for your time, your incredible hospitality here at your home, which is beautiful. I'm going to have a serious sunburn on my forehead, but that's okay. At least I can go back to the East Coast with that. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And stay tuned next week for episode 86. Don't forget, you can follow us on SoundCloud, Instagram, Facebook, all those things. I forgot one of them, Twitter. Go to the website, roadiefreeradio.com. Check out our YouTube channel. A lot more content coming out from the NAMM show still, as well as more great interviews coming up. Episode 86, right around the corner. Thank you again, Lucie.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. No roadies, no rock and roll.